Hi everyone, welcome to the announcement of the Explorer Challenge winners. Thanks so much for joining us from wherever you are in the world today. My name is Holly from Unearthed, and I'm here with my colleague Jess Robertson, also from Unearthed, and we'll be your hosts for today's announcement over the next hour or so. So we're really excited to, after months and months of work from all the participants, to finally get to be able to announce the winners today in around an hour. So leading up to the announcement, we've got we're going to hear from lots of interesting people, from some of our judges, from some of our partners, from the winners of the data science stream. So maybe we'll just talk give a little bit of background of the Explorer Challenge. Jess, do you want to talk through a bit of the history?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the Explorer Challenge was launched by Minerals and Unearthed earlier this year, and the aim was to try and explore new ways of doing targeting in the Mount Woods tenement, which is in South Australia. The Mount Woods tenement is around Minerals, one of Minerals' big assets, which is Prominent Hill. And they've explored this tenement for around about 10 years for IOCG mineralisation, so that's copper and gold, for those of you that aren't geologists. And so they're interested in, could we actually get some new ideas into this exploration process than the same ones that we've been applying for the last 10 years. So earlier this year we released over 5 terabytes of historical exploration data, and basically invited all of the a whole bunch of innovators in data science and geoscience from around the world to dig into that data and tell us what they could find. And today we get to find out, which has been it's actually been a really, really exciting journey just to see what people have managed to uncover from this big treasure trove of data.
Yeah, there's some really awesome submissions that have come through. So yeah, really excited to be able to find out who the winners are finally today. Everyone probably is aware that the prize pool for Explorer is $1 million. So today we're finally going to get to award $1 million worth of prizes to people. So there's quite a few prizes that we're going to get through today. So we have the first grand prize is $500,000, and then that's for the overall best submission. And then we have the second best submission at $200,000, the third place at $100,000, the top student prize at $50,000. And then we've got 4 secondary prizes which really focus on ways that people have particularly used the data. So we'll go through those in more detail when we announce them, but we've got a Genius Prize, a prize around data fusion, the Data Hound Prize for the team that's kind of best used data, and Data Insights Prize for people who have got the best insights out of unstructured data like photos and things like that. So lots to get through today. So before we get started, I'd also like to put out a lot of thanks to all the partners that have been involved in this challenge. It's been a really big project over the last 6 to 9 months now. So special thanks to particularly the Department of Energy and Mining in South Australia. Huge partner and huge support there. And we'll talk more about that later, all the data that has been used from the South Australian survey. Also to Esri, who supported the challenge by providing licenses of ArcGIS to all the participants, which we know has been a fantastic addition for teams to use and has really made a difference to their submissions. And to AWS as well, who have supported with credits and access to their platform, which has been really, really excellent. So thanks to all those partners who've all been crucial in the project, which has been fantastic. So now to officially kick off the live stream, I'd like to hand over to the CEO of Minerals, Andrew Cole, to introduce the session.
Hi everyone. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the many lands we meet on today and recognise their continuing connection to the land. I pay my respects to their elders, the past, the present and the emerging. Hello to everybody joining us from across a multitude of time zones and continents. I'm really pleased you could be with us today. It's been an exciting couple of months running the Explorer Challenge, a global crowdsourcing competition that's challenged innovators to test the limits of data science and geology to develop new ideas about mineral exploration. Those of you who have been following us would know that we announced the winners of the data science stream last month. So again, congratulations to the teams Couched in Uncertainty, Team Hung and Low, and Team Avant Data Solutions. I'm pleased to see all the top data science teams apply the wealth of knowledge they developed in the data science stream to take part in the mainstream of the Explorer Challenge. It was impressive to see how the data science stream attracted so many new people to become involved in the analysis of exploration data. We've received 37 high-calibre submissions in this main challenge. It was good to see teams bringing together members from both geoscience and data science backgrounds, proving that diversity can truly create spectacular results. We had 1,000 individuals from over 60 countries downloading over 5 terabytes of public and private exploration data that was made available. 10,000 individual data sets were downloaded for over 1 million files. This translated to teams spending 4 to 5 days of computing power on around 100 CPU clusters to process the data, predicting over 80,000 deposits across Australia just in the first phase of the competition. The amount of work everyone has put into the submissions is outstanding. I'm certainly very humbled by the effort that all teams have gone through in providing their submissions. It really speaks for itself with the quality of the submissions we have received. Our job as judges has been incredibly difficult. The competition was steep and we had a lot of rigorous debate as every submission had unique aspects that made it a winner in its own right. But there are only so many prizes and we've had to make some very tough decisions with the winners edging out submissions by narrow margins. The risk we took with running something like the Explorer Challenge has paid off in more ways than we were initially hoping for. The learnings have now evolved into so much more than just finding new drill targets in old exploration patches. Through the competition, we at Oz Minerals learned to push the boundaries of working and looking at things differently, challenge our long-held worldwide views, of course, and while having fun along the way, to the point that new drill targets nearly seem like an incidental but beneficial byproduct. Similarly, all the teams should feel very proud of themselves for helping to further the knowledge on how different streams of expertise can be applied to challenges in our industry. For many of the teams, this is one of the rare times they've come across such data sets, and again, to be able to take something that's familiar but foreign and generate such quality submissions takes ingenuity and imagination. If you'd like to keep honing your skills in mining data sets, the good news is that crowdsourcing is something Oz Minerals would like to continue to pursue, perhaps with application to other smaller projects as well. So please watch this space.
Thanks, Andrew. I think we can certainly agree that the quality of the submissions was extremely high. I think we were all blown away by the amount of work that went into those submissions and particularly the ability of participants to really combine aspects of machine learning and traditional geoscience workflows to really come up with, I guess, ways of working that we hadn't really seen before. So it was really, really impressive, and we'll hear a little bit more about that later today. So now with any kind of project of this scale and of this size and something that's truly groundbreaking, there's always one person behind it, that kind of drives, that kind of seeds the idea and really gets things moving and challenges people's traditional ways of thinking. And that person is Richard Holmes, the head of exploration and growth for Oz Minerals. And now we're going to pass over to Richard to give a bit more of his insight in the challenge and some of the outcomes so far.
About why we ran the challenge. This is an area that we felt that we needed to accelerate the journey to discovery using data, and the competition really helped us access thousands of very skilled people around the globe from a range of technical disciplines to solve this very industry-specific challenge. I think the stats that have been shown around, we had over 1,000 people downloading data from 60 or 70 countries around the world, so it accessed a truly global environment of people. And look, this has helped us gain new insights and find new approaches that really push the boundaries of our geological understanding. It's safe to say that many of these models have challenged our internal geological staff and hopefully have changed their thinking. And ultimately, this competition represents a sort of a fundamental change to the way we do exploration. The data science industry can be used for exploration and many other challenges that the industry faces. partnering and accessing as many sectors as possible has meant that we've seen ideas from outside the norm, and things that we may never have considered have really come to the fore. As Andrew mentioned, we've received 37 high-quality submissions. We were really impressed with the level of diversity in the submissions. Outstanding was the way that the teams integrated, many different disciplines to develop robust and unique workflows applicable to the challenge of exploration targeting. We were impressed with everyone's ability to explain how these machine learning approaches developed and how they were relevant to the Mount Woods targets. And this sort of really empowered our geologists to believe and engage with this method. The way that data science and machine learning has provided validation and feedback on predictions and the models is quite a different way from traditional thinking, from a geological perspective. And now we know that we can learn a lot by applying this thinking to our approaches. We were really impressed by the amount of public data that the teams used to develop their predictions, as well as the data that we supplied. So while we provided a huge amount of data, the majority of the teams also used data from the state of South Australia, other states from Australia, as well as national Australian data sets and international data sets. So I'd like to thank the South Australian Geological Survey for all their support during the competition, and particularly in providing webinars, which was used to introduce participants to the South Australian database and how to get their hands on the key data sets. In terms of targets, we've still got a lot of work to do and go through and assess which ones to drill. We're also looking at something called the consensus approach. So many of these models predicted targets in the similar area. So it's, again, a different approach. So we had lots of models predicting the same targets, so we'll look and review and hopefully be testing those later this year. Crowdsourcing this challenge has provided us with a unique opportunity because we've had so many approaches developed in parallel that are unique and diverse. It's enabled us to build confidence in new targets as well as targets that has been on our radar for quite some considerable time. So we're excited to share with you soon which of the targets we decide to drill, and hope you follow the results for the upcoming year and early next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic partnering with the exploration team, in particular with Oz Minerals, and seeing how their thinking has changed on particularly how data science and machine learning can start to really accelerate some of the exploration things that have been done. We were actually, as Richard mentioned, it was a hard job to try and judge between all of the solutions that were submitted to the challenge. But fortunately, we had a really fantastic lineup of really expert judges. In particular, we had Zane Prickett from Unearthed. We had Andrew Cole, who you've heard from earlier as the CEO of Oz Minerals. We had Mika McKinnon, who's a science communicator from the United States. And last but not least, we had Dr. Steve Hill, who is the Chief Scientist at Geoscience Australia, possibly one of our most enthusiastic judges on the panel. So I'd like to hand back over to Steve back in Adelaide to hear his insights on the judging process.
Stand there, Rich. Hi, everyone. I just want to say, firstly, that it was a privilege to be a judge in this competition. The quality of the entries that we worked through were just a delight to engage with and think about. But it was also really good to be on the judging panel where we were basically throwing around ideas and bouncing off what had come in to really arrive at what were quite difficult decisions, because as Andrew Cole said earlier, the quality of entry was very, very high. And so, yes, we're going to be celebrating winners in those categories today, but I do want to reinforce what Andrew said. It's not just giving positive lip service to something. It's actually very genuine that it was a tough decision to arrive at the people that are awarded the winners, and certainly the quality of the people that missed out, well, really, the expectation was that many of those would have been winning entries. I also want to say a little bit about something that some of the trends that came through in the entries. It's very interesting to see the combination of data science and geoscience in these entries, and you really get a feel for a whole spectrum of how different groups of people are doing that. So you had some end members that are very geoscience driven, some end members that are very data science driven, and then of course we have all those mergings in between. And I think that was something that was, I think it really highlights a future for exploration and a future for the industry of how all of those different attributes of new technology, traditional insights and experience are combined to really improve how we step towards making discoveries. From the perspective of a government geologist in this, I also found that there was a lot of personal reflection and insight around the entries. The number one thing that certainly wasn't lost on me was the need for fit-for-purpose, publicly available data. And what's really interesting about that is that 10 years ago, it was deemed as something to be proud of if you were a government and you were providing PDFs of data and drill information. People are laughing in the room around me here, but it's true. You know, if the government geological surveys that had PDFs of things were rewarded very handsomely in Fraser Institute rankings and so forth. What we can see, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone here, but it has real implications for governments, and that is the concept of fit-for-purpose data has really evolved in a very short amount of time, and that is to have machine-readable data, good quality, provenance of the data, and ensure that it's reusable and follows those fair principles of data are really, really critical now. And this competition really highlights that, particularly for government data sets, but it's equally applicable to industry data sets and also for that transition between industry and government. So there's some of the learnings that I wanted to share with everyone this morning, other than to also say congratulations for those that will be acknowledged today. You should be very proud of that, and no shame for those that are not going to be directly acknowledged. I think hopefully you'll all receive the feedback of the quality that was really recognised and appreciated in so many of the entries that we looked at. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, as Steve said, even though we're only able to kind of award a handful of the teams today, I think there's going to be so much follow-up from the Oz team with many of the other groups because there were just so many diverse and applicable methods and solutions that were put forward. So yeah, absolutely. I think it was genuinely a really difficult job for the judges. So yeah, as Steve kind of was talking to you there, like this kind of challenge really lends itself to many different kind of data sets, public and industry data sets. And we mentioned earlier one of our partners was the Department of Energy and Mining in South Australia, and one of the real successes of this challenge was the ability of a lot of the participants to really use the South Australian public data set really, really well in generating their targets. So we saw the majority of the teams really, really add this public data set to an already very large data set of over 5 terabytes of private data from Oz. And I think you'll see once we get into hearing more from some of the winning teams later just how much it meant to them to be able to have access to that data in their predictions. And the government have been really supportive throughout this challenge. We've had some of the team jump on webinars explaining to the participants how to get started on the data and what some of the key public data sets are. So that's been fantastic. So thank you so much. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Alex Flood, the Executive Director for Mineral Resources at the department, to provide her perspective on the challenge.
Hi, and thank you. I'd first like to say thank you on behalf of the government to Andrew Cole and all of the staff at Oz who, I guess, had the courage to create this opportunity for the rest of us to participate, you as contestants, but also us as government. I think that the learning opportunities for Oz, but the learning opportunities for the project, but also for us as government have actually been significant. You know, we were delighted to support people by access. We were delighted to support people with webinars. You know, I'm going to confess that our beloved lady Christy, who did those webinars, was genuinely thrilled when she saw how many countries signed in for those webinars. The idea that these numbers and the access that she carefully curates was so valued by people was very exciting for her. But it's also raised lots of questions for us because we do curate over 100 years of geological and environmental data for the state. And all of a sudden we've realised that we need it to be more accessible than ever to more types of people. We need it to be as accessible to our traditional owners who use our data sets to look at their own country, as to our explorers, as to our miners, but also to our communities and now data scientists and mathematicians and people interested in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And how we do that is a big challenge for us. But this project has delivered, I think, probably an intangible, unrecognised value to us, that we've realised some of the opportunities that we as government, as the curator of these massive sets, have to make them more flexible, to scrub the data, to consider different ways of storing it, to make it more open source, to also think about how we use the data. You know, maybe one day we as government and the Geological Survey, as part of the Department of Energy and Mining, we may open up our data sets for similar competitions. You know, what are the opportunities that this has raised, I think, are boundless, and it certainly is something that the team and I have very much appreciated, and very proud of Oz as a South Australian-based company for taking that really bold step. I'd like to congratulate everybody for participating. You know, I almost had a family team. We have a family of miners and geologists and data scientists, and they all were very, very sad when I said that we were conflict of interest out of the competition. But it is exciting to see this new frontier being able to create cross-generational interest from older geos in our family to the younger up-and-coming data scientists. So thank you again to Oz. Congratulations to everyone who participated, and we look forward to supporting Oz in the future, but we also look forward to maybe thinking about how we as the owners of these much larger, broader data sets can look to also support future exploration. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex, and yeah, really, really good point about, you know, how that public data can be used into the future, and it's a great way with these kind of public data sets to really showcase the prospectivity of states such as South Australia, and likewise on the point of the cross-generation thing. Like, it was really great to see throughout this competition geologists and data scientists from all ages, from students up until people that have had, you know, 20, 30 years experience getting together and forming teams, and it's been great to see the successes that they've made. So now we're going to welcome Zane Prickett, Director of Unearthed, and also one of the judges. And Zane is also involved in obviously a lot of the design of the competition as well. So I'm going to have a chat to Zane about some of his experiences. So actually, maybe we would start on that the competition design and how we kind of approached it from an Unearthed point of view, particularly in the data science space.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. I think from the beginning we really had a push to make sure that the competition was as open and accessible for data scientists and geologists as possible. So it meant that we weren't looking at just big, lumpy data dumps with no data dictionaries or no explanation of the data. We really wanted to try and make it as accessible as possible from the beginning, and I think Jess, taking the lead on it, did a really good job to make it accessible. Also, we thought there was some way to get them introduced that wasn't just the big $1 million competition, but a way to bring them on board to start to show potentially what they can do in the space. And the data science competition that we ran in March into April was a great way to do that. Had a fun leaderboard. You could see if you could properly predict the location and the mineral types. That led to some really good interest, and I think we saw that interest and their approaches they used in that competition go from Australia-wide data science competition to specifically the Mount Woods. So.
And through your experience judging, kind of what was your impression on some of the submissions and the approaches that people were taking?
Yeah, so overall, really impressed. I think overall the quality of submissions were above what I expected. I know the crowd's great. I know there's some really talented people out there, both data science, geologists, engineers. And I knew there would be some good submissions, but I didn't realize there could be this many great submissions. So that's one. Two, I think this is the thing about exploration and geology. There were a lot of super valid approaches that came up with totally different answers. And I don't think we talk about that enough. There was not any, in the way they were going about the exploration of the data, the way they were telling the story through geology, they were totally valid approaches, but they came up with different results. And I think that's kind of again, I'm not a geologist by background. I haven't done juniors or exploration, but from my understanding, that's very common. And I think being able to see that during the judging process was quite eye-opening for me.
And kind of on that different approaches, and Richard touched on it before around the concept of consensus. One of the things we started talking about through this competition is how we do have multiple different approaches that predict different things, but often they actually predict the same thing. And so we're really interested in how, by totally different approaches predicting the same target, does that help us build confidence and how that's kind of fairly a unique approach?
Yeah, so I 100% look through the lens of Unearthed in this, and I don't want to not say that I'm not biased on this space. I think there's a ton of valid research around the crowd and around how independent agents coming up with the same answer adds a whole bunch of validity to a potential answer. And I think something in the exploration space, again, all these great valid approaches, and if you're finding they're completely independent, they're taking different ways to get to those outcomes, but if they're finding common outcomes, that adds a whole bunch to that outcome.
And the crowd is the only way to do that, really. I mean, we spend a lot of time in geology thinking a lot about data quality issues, data provenance, those sorts of things that the survey were alluding to earlier. But we don't often think about how well have we searched the model space or the explanation space for what we're searching for. And so I think what's been really cool has been to see that this is a really interesting way of searching across all of those models that each individually take quite a lot of work to build. The teams have put in a huge amount of effort for every single one of those submissions that we've seen. But essentially what you can get out of it is confidence in those predictions rather than just relying on, well, this is person X and I trust them. So it's certainly a much more robust way of going about it, I think.
Yeah, and I think what we've seen historically is we've gone down very much an expert path. Let's get one person more expert in expert space. And the truth is it's such a complex domain. Maybe there's a better way about getting multiple approaches and being able to pull those approaches together to get a more quality answer.
And it has been interesting actually seeing the way that it's not like we've thrown the expert out the window. There's been fantastic expertise in all of these submissions, but what's been really interesting has been the way that teams have interleaved bits of machine learning and bits of automated data exploration with geological validation at the end. And I think what it's looking across all the teams, what it's meant is that expert time gets much more usefully spent on the things that matter and not the things that don't matter, which is like, are all of my assays in the same format? As opposed to that, they're actually saying, no, are these targets that we've got, are they making geological sense? Can I tell a good story around those? Have we actually got the right thing at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, they're using their expert opinion to validate as opposed to do data work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is great.
And what about, we talked about a bit about consensus and different approaches. What about from the data science side? I mean, we've certainly seen through this competition how people have used huge amounts of data sets from both at the local, kind of regional and international scale. How do you see, I guess, exploration and data science coming together and changing into the future?
Yeah, I mean, exploration is a data-driven activity, and data science is really good at using lots. It's actually... it's not just like the lots of data, because I think historically explorations use a lot of data. The process about how they validate and improve their approaches systematically data driven has not been driven enough into the exploration space, and just it's almost the techniques underneath the data science approaches are going to make the biggest difference.
Absolutely.
And then you start adding in the geological data, and it will become a much more validated approach that they'll be taking in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if you think our traditional way of validating geological models is basically stick a drill on it, and by the time you've got to actually drilling something out, you're already sinking tens of thousands of dollars into hundreds of thousands of dollars into a drilling campaign. And I think what was really interesting about some of the techniques that we used were where they were really saying, how could we actually validate our approach on the data we've got before we actually go out and check something new? And then I think there's also a slightly different mindset about how we collect data as well, that you start to think about, well, I'm not going to collect new data unless I can predict what that data is going to be. So it's all about adopting a more of a learning mindset than I think what we've seen in the industry so far.
Yeah, I think that bit was interesting, the creativity they used to try and validate their answers, because they didn't have any money to drill. No. So they were like, how do I validate this? And they were coming up with some really creative ways. It was good.
But it also does cement the role of that public data set as a way of training these points. I mean, the whole reason we did the data science stream at the start is that if all you did was take the data from Mount Woods, if you're looking for deposits, you've essentially got one or two training points: Prominent Hill, Cairn Hill, Peculiar Knob. That's about it. Whereas when you've got this government data set, all of a sudden you can start to use every deposit in Australia as your training data set.
Yep.
And I think that actually cements that Australia's in a really, really good position internationally in terms of the quality of the open data that's available, to really sort of launch this new generation of potentially data-driven explorers, I think, which is quite exciting.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Zane. And on that kind of data science note, we're going to now hear from Hugh, who was one of the winners of the data science stream. So I might have to just go and see
shuffle them out.
Shuffle Hugh out. So as we kind of mentioned before, we ran a data science stream in the first month of the Explorer competition with the sole aim of kind of getting data scientists familiar with geoscience data. So how can we make that kind of onboarding process a bit easier for a data type that's traditionally really kind of difficult to get your head around sometimes, particularly where it kind of lacks a bit of context. So happy to welcome Hugh, who was part of the winning team for the data science stream, to hear a little bit more about your experience, your approach, and things like that. So I suppose to get started, if you could kind of give us a bit of background as to why you took on the challenge in the first place.
Well, I guess the first challenge we always viewed as a kind of lead into the main challenge. It's a little bit more well defined, so there's a very specific goal in mind, a numerical answer, which is always appealing. The main challenge was more open-ended, and so it just gave us a good place to start and get us familiar with some of the data that's actually available.
Yeah, so Jess actually designed that stream. So I think maybe just comment on how it was designed to kind of give that feedback, as you mentioned, from the model side.
Yeah, I mean, when we were designing it, I basically put my data scientist hat on and said, if I was trying to understand where I should start with the main challenge, how would I simplify the problem to the point that it would actually be solvable using techniques that we have available, like deep learning and so on. So the main aim of the data science challenge was to essentially provide a data set that was kind of pre-cleaned, ready to go, and also change the problem slightly. So in traditional exploration, we know we know areas where we have deposits. We don't actually know any areas where there are no deposits for sure. And that actually is quite a hard problem to solve from a machine learning point of view, because you've got effectively no labels, just areas where you haven't found anything yet for whatever reason. So we changed the problem slightly to make it more of a traditional classification problem of here's a chunk of Australia, here's all of the data that we've got for that chunk of Australia, tell us whether there's a deposit there. If there is a deposit there, what commodity is it and where is it located? And if there's not, tell us that there's not. And that basically makes it easier for data scientists, machine learning experts to come in and really just focus on their models, I guess, as opposed to having to focus on where do I start within 5 terabytes of data? Where do I start with all the different data types? How do I find the domain expertise I need to understand the features that are going to be important for engineering a really good model? So, how did you find that any of those things actually worked for you, Hugh? Or
yeah, so we definitely made use of all the image data. We went and found just a few more layers, but ultimately the first half of our main challenge was based on the I guess the skills and the models we had from the first part of the competition. I mean, there's still a question as to what it is you were trying to predict. Like the main competition, the data science competition, the metric was distance to the nearest mine and a few things like that, which is not really related to the main competition. So we decided to try to predict a prospectivity map straight off the bat. So really trying to get the main competition under control as well. So yeah, we definitely found it very helpful to participate in the first one. And it also gives you some confidence in the models. Like you can train a network to basically give you any answer you want, but without really going back to something that you can get your teeth into, you don't really know that it's giving like a correct answer of any sort.
So what did you have to change between the data science stream and the main comp?
So we added the regolith depth and the topology just to give it a bit more context about how close to the surface some of these minerals might be, because we understood the South Australia region to be a little bit different in character to some of the West Australian data sets that were heavily in the data science stream. We also did a few things like we just reduced the resolution a bit just to deal with the amount of data. And for the final preparation, we removed the prominent hill area from the data set so that we weren't just predicting what we trained it on. So yeah, not too much. That formed sort of the first part of our main challenge.
And so, how do you obviously probably learn a lot about exploration data through the process, and probably some traditional exploration methods too. I suppose how do you see kind of data science moving forward in exploration and being used in meaningful ways in that exploration targeting space?
Yeah, well, I think as soon as it comes to multi-dimensional image analysis, then machine learning is really going to start to give you great insights. I mean, the human can look at 1 or 2 layers, I think, and probably do better than a machine. But once it comes to 10 or 15 or 20 layers and trying to find maybe some subtle correlations, you really get into the realms of deep learning. The only problem with the deep learning is that you need to have like a lot of data. So if we're only talking about 1,800, 2,400 mine sites, it's still not like a lot of data. So there still is sort of a human element to address the data in the first place.
And on that kind of data granularity and density, how did you find working with the different data sets in the challenge? There were a lot of different scales.
Yeah, so the image data, you can just reduce its resolution to something that's manageable. So we did that. I think originally 500 squares. We just chopped it down to 250 just because then it would fit into memory, and that made things a whole bunch easier. And so that was so that's kind of your regional scale data. And then when it comes down to the drilling data, obviously that is more closely spaced. So I think that's maybe where some of the skills in the main challenge come in, is actually how do you match those two things up.
And so I suppose, is there anything in terms of comments back to geologists, how we collect our data differently, or looking at how we would kind of acquire data in the first place in a different way? Yeah,
well, I thought, we started with the positions of these deposits within Australia. I think there's a lot more that could be done in that department. For instance, is it one mine or is it 2 mines? Is it one big mine? Is there just a tenement boundary between them? Is that the only thing? So maybe some more fine-grained data on actually what the mine itself is. Maybe its spatial extent and a few more things there. All the more drilling data you can get from maybe competitive mine sites or aggregate it somehow. It's just going to help everyone. So I'm not sure what the competitive landscape is there, but if you could share your data, it would be better for everyone in some sense.
Yes, we certainly agree. I think we haven't really touched on it yet today, but it was a really big deal that Oz put their private data out there. Like it's not common at all, and it's pretty groundbreaking to be doing that. But like you say, I think we'll make leaps and bounds forward if we kind of change our approach on data.
Oh, it's like seeing other areas like where you've done deep learning and so on, and they've created data sandboxes, and that's actually what's driven the field forward. So often I think we need to provide that sandbox for exploration data science to move forward as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, arguably, I guess the ImageNet database is more important than any algorithm as far as
absolutely
the field forward. So yeah, definitely there is something in that.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks, Hugh. I think that's been an excellent deep dive into some of the data science approaches and applications for the challenge. So now we're going to send it back to Adelaide and the Oz team. And Richard's going to talk to us a little bit more about next steps that Oz Minerals are going to take.
Thanks, Ollie. So I'll briefly touch on what Oz Minerals will do next. I suppose the first thing is we're actually really looking forward to working with all these teams and not just the winners. There's such a large diversity of approaches that we know that all these people can help us improve our overall process for exploration targeting. And we think this approach is truly groundbreaking, and it can really change the way exploration is done across the industry. And I suppose the most important thing is that we'll be sharing the targets. So we're going to let you know what we're going to drill, and hopefully what we expect to find. And I'm pretty sure in some way, shape or form we'll be going back to the crowd to be asking for help in a multitude of small competitions, helping us fine-tune those models and ultimately trying to predict what we're going to find. Thanks for that, and now back to Perth, I think.
Thanks, Richard. So yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting over the next few months when we see what targets end up getting selected and end up getting drilled. So I suppose we've still got a few more minutes before we get to the announcement. So maybe we can talk a little bit more about some of the approaches and things that we've seen in the submissions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, like I said, one of the big takeaways that was really interesting was seeing the variety of not just like the whole workflow, but actually all of the little bits and the way that people started to kind of stitch those together. Certainly as sitting through, I mean, we weren't on the judging panel, but we were facilitating it, sitting through that facilitation process and seeing, man, it'd be awesome if you took Team X's way of measuring, the validity of their model, and Team Y's way of prepping the data, and Team Z way of interpreting the geology, and put those all together. You could just see this kind of uber exploration process coming out of it, which was really, really cool. I think one of the really interesting things going forward is going to be to think about how that collaboration gets facilitated within the industry. I guess traditionally it seems like everything has to happen within the explorer or within the mining house. So you want to do all of your data and all of your models and everything all in one place. And one of the interesting things is going to be how do Oz Minerals or any industry player, how do they get to the point where they can actually actively engage with this innovator community that's out there that has these fantastic tools to be able to build that Uber exploration process? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I think what was really interesting in comments from, so during the judging process, we actually had, the first phase of judging, we had 10 really, industry-leading experts from data science, maths, and geology.
That's right.
And a lot of the comments that particularly the data science judges were mentioning were a lot of these techniques are less than 2 years old. So we're seeing really, really modern, cutting-edge techniques that are being applied to this challenge. And I think that's going to be a challenge for us as geologists to keep up with. Like, how do we constantly make sure that we're tapping into the most up-to-date techniques and making sure that we're testing those and saying, okay, well, what's new in machine learning that we should be trying and applying to exploration? Because traditionally we take a long time to develop new technologies and things that we apply to exploration, and it might take us, well, let's say realistically about 10 years to implement a new technology into our workflow, and we just can't work like that anymore.
No, we can't. And I think that really comes down to, as an exploration company, what is your aim? Your aim is to find targets or to find new deposits. It's not to be a machine learning, expertise company. And certainly there's no way that a junior could keep up with someone like Google, who has a machine learning engineering team of thousands. So I think the real question for industry is going to be how do we open up a little bit more about our problems? How do we open up a little bit more about our workflows? And how do we find these sort of little hook points that a startup or an external company can come in and say, I have a tool that's going to help you do this, so that effectively it gets you to the point where, as a company, your geological expertise is being spent in the most efficient way possible.
And I think there's that kind of interesting dialogue going on at the moment around skills, particularly in data science. Like, how do we hire a data scientist, and what does that actually mean, and what kind of skills do we need to have in-house? And I guess from an unearthed bias point of view, like, we obviously think that there's an ability to tap into the crowd, to tap into some of that skill set. But on the flip side, what are the kind of skills that companies need to have in-house to be able to understand how to work with a data scientist? And what should you potentially have? Should you have an in-house developer and one data scientist, or how can you kind of approach that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting things has been to see, just from this competition and the approaches, how people have bridged that dialogue gap between the data scientists and the geologists. I think geologists and data scientists actually care about the same things. They care a lot about data quality. They care a lot about creating models that generalize well. They care a lot about making predictions in areas and seeing things that they haven't seen yet. And I think those problems are the same whether you're a geologist or a data scientist. And often the challenge is just that we use different words to describe the same things. So part of it is actually just literally being able to have either a data scientist in your geology team or a geologist in your data science team to act as that dialogue bridge, to be able to say that these are useful things to be able to talk to each other about. And then the other problem, of course, is this problem definition issue. And so we, for example, to go back to the data science stream, we had to simplify the problem of exploration to be able to give the data scientists a foothold in exploration data, because the full problem's too hard. But if we can simplify it, that gives us something we can start from and build. And I think sometimes that problem definition thing is what can be really, really hard to bed down within a company. It's easy to go out and hire a bunch of PhDs in machine learning. It's really, really hard to get your current staff to understand when they've got a problem in your business that could be usefully solved by data science. And ultimately, I think at the moment, this is just one of those things that companies have to grow. So.
I suppose on that, like, the other thing that we've been talking about a little bit is developing this kind of predictive mindset. And by that what we mean is kind of in traditional geology, like, we often don't really have much of a feedback loop. We use our kind of prospectivity weighting. We might say, we think this is a good target because it's got a mag high and some coincident geochem, and we go and drill it. But there's not really much feedback loop, or an ability for us to actually learn from the results of that, whether it's positive or negative. But when we look at data science, we're actually seeing methods that really have that validation, really have that feedback loop, and say if we predict something and we're not right or we are right, that informs and trains our model. So how can we start thinking as geologists in a more kind of predictive way?
Well, you have to have a model that's going to be able to take all the data, I suppose. I mean, I think the closest analogy to minerals exploration is probably in oil and gas, where you have this concept of, obviously, if you drill a well and you hit some oil or some gas, then great, that's a success and everyone makes a lot of money. But they also have this concept of a technical success. So when I'm exploring for oil, what I care about is, all of the sediments in a basin. I care about their ages. I care about their permeabilities and porosities and a whole bunch of different things. And so actually what I'm really interested in testing with that well often is there oil at the bottom, because there may or may not be. But what I actually care about is, did I get all of those other things right before I even get to the oil? Did I get all the layers in the right location? Did I get all the ages the right way around? And I think we need to do the same for geology. We shouldn't be even taking a soil sample unless we know roughly what the chemistry is going to be that comes back. We shouldn't be drilling a hole or taking assays from a drill hole unless we know roughly what the chemistry is going to be to come back. And really it goes to that problem of, in minerals, we want to know about the outliers. And if we can't predict what we're expecting to see, there's certainly no way that we can predict that this thing looks like an outlier. And I think that's where often things get missed, is that it's that element of surprise and exploration that's actually really, really important. And the only way we can really get to that is if we know what we expect, so that we can say, oh, this is different to what I expected. That's interesting. Why is that?
Yeah. So really, kind of from that kind of prospectivity assessment that we do and weighting, if we picked a target because we think it has this type of chemistry and it's going to intersect this type of it's got this anomaly, so we expect it to intercept this kind of type of rock. We should be building that into our predictive model and actually then feeding back to say, did we technically actually get this right?
And we have to start collecting different data too. I mean, we do collect things like specific gravity or magnetic susceptibility, but probably not routinely. Often a company will go out and just do a bunch of assays, and they'll just assay for gold or assay for copper, which, yes, is the thing you want to get to, but doesn't tell you how well your model did. Whereas if you're actually measuring, say, the physical properties of the rock, if you've done a geophysical inversion to try and see what's there, then you can actually say, well, did my inversion, which is going to predict things like rock density or magnetic susceptibility, did I actually get that right? And we don't do enough of that closing the loop, possibly because it's boring and it's not the shiny stuff that we actually get all our kicks from as geologists. But it's going to be massively important in improving the hit rate that we have in industry, I think.
It's kind of looping back to that, kind of we were touching on a bit before around those internal processes. From your kind of view as a data scientist, can we talk a little bit more about what does it mean to kind of build some of these processes internally? What does it take? How much does it cost? Is this something that we should be looking to do internally, or is it something that we should be partnering with other people to be doing? Or what are your thoughts?
It's a really hard one. I mean, I think a lot of these data engineering techniques are still relatively new, and we're still bedding down exactly what's kind of the best in class way to go about building these kind of processes. I suspect that a lot of it will go back to geology teams having to accept that they can't just work by themselves anymore. So I think we have a bit of a mindset where we're like, well, if I can read it in Excel and I know what my folder structure looks like, that's good enough for me. And the minute you have a data scientist come in, they start going, well, all of your columns have different names and I can't join these two spreadsheets together, and so then it can't go into the models. So a lot of those kind of data quality issues are only going to become much, much more important. And it's going to be much less about what you do internally for your data quality. It's going to be a lot more about how can you bring your data up to a standard where an external party could come in and just plug something in on top.
And how much of that can we potentially automate? Like, I know a lot of people are looking into this because we know how much it takes around the data cleaning, data engineering. Like, how much of that workflow can we potentially automate?
It's actually really hard to do for minerals exploration. So the trouble with minerals exploration as a field is that what you want to do with your data changes all the time. And so typically with data engineering, where it's worked really well is where you're sort of like a Google or a Facebook and you've got a bunch of log data and it's always the same and it's all coming in the same format. And then there's sort of a case for, well, yes, I can spend the money on engineering a solution because my data's not changing, I just have a lot of it. Whereas in exploration, one day you might be looking at regional scale mag and you care about certain aspects of that data and you want to feed it into a model that predicts something. And then you might be looking at, drill hole scale magnetic susceptibility the next day, and that needs a completely different way of using that same regional mag that's going to change potentially from day to day, from deposit to deposit, from prospect to prospect. And so trying to work out what the common threads are across all of those workflows is still really hard. So I think we still have a way to go to explore what that data engineering space looks like. But the first step on that path is to actually be honest about what our problems are, how we want to use our data, and commit to getting better, I guess.
All right, well, I think that's been a really excellent kind of deep dive and hypothesizing over what, how exploration is going to be changing and some of the things that we're going to be seeing over the next, well, kind of now, to be honest. And I'd certainly encourage people to have a look out in the market, particularly in the startup sector. There's lots of really interesting companies out there like Orfox, Goldspot, Cobalt that are really kind of leading the way in the machine learning, data science, and exploration space.
And if you're a junior explorer and you think you can get away with not worrying about this stuff, I suspect in the next 5 years your investors are going to start worrying about this. So it's probably a good opportunity to start getting on the front foot. Otherwise, it will start to make problems for you down the track.
Yeah, it's interesting times. All right, well, we're not too far away from getting down to the pointy end of things and actually finding out who the winners
people care
of
about.
the Explorer Challenge are. So probably had enough from us. So look, I think we'll hand back over to Andrew Cole to kind of give us a bit of a recap before we go into the winners announcement.
I won't keep you in suspense too long, but wanted to say thanks again to everyone who has participated in this challenge for daring to be different and going out on a limb. To all the winners, congratulations and a job well done. We look forward to drilling the viable top submissions later this year. To everyone who's participated, thank you again for rising to the challenge and helping us connect dots we'd not previously imagined, much less seen. I'll now hand over to the team to announce the winners.
So before we get to the winners announcement, let's just have a little bit more of a recap on the prizes. So as we kind of mentioned before, we talked to Hugh, the data science stream did actually close a month or so ago now. So that prize was $50,000 for the combined prize pool for the top 3 teams. So those were awarded back last month. But today we're going to go through all the different prize categories. So we'll start with the 4 secondary prizes, and so just touching a little bit briefly on what those prizes are. So the secondary prizes are really designed to kind of uncover new ways of working and look at potentially some data science, but also geological approaches that are unique and novel in kind of the way that we use data. So of those, we've also got the Genius Prize, which is for the most out-of-the-box approach.
Most random approach that we didn't just surprised us totally.
Yeah.
So,
and we've also got the Data Hound, which was for kind of like the best use of
public and private data.
Yeah.
And we were really trying to encourage teams to make good use of that data that was in SARIG or Geoscience Australia or the other state surveys to really improve their models on the Mount Woods area. That was actually a really hard one to try and give out because everyone did such a good job of it. So that was good. Yeah. And then the next one was we
had the Insights Prize. So the Insights
Prize
is really to push people to see how they could extract data from unstructured data. So what we mean by unstructured data is things like photos, PDF reports, data that doesn't have a nice current quantitative explanation. So how can you apply different approaches to pull data out of those types of data formats?
So some examples that we had in the data set included SARIG very kindly gave us a dump of every exploration report for the last 100 years from South Australia, which are all in PDFs, as Steve was saying, but we had some teams that were able to do natural language processing on that. And Oz also were able to release photos of all of their core, for example, and it's another unstructured data set that teams use to extract value.
And then the last one was the Diffusion Prize, which is kind of assessing how well people have managed to fuse all these different data sets together and come up with their targets. So in a minute, we'll hand back over to Richard to actually get the announcements going. So what we're going to do, because we've got so many prizes, we'll just hear who the winners are for the secondary prizes, and then for the student prize and the top 3 prizes, we'll hopefully flick over to the winners live to gauge their reactions. So without further ado, I'd like to hand back over to Richard to get the announcement started.
Okay, thank you, Holly. So look, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who entered. The level of participation was absolutely incredible, and we are so happy with the results of this challenge. I'd like to congratulate the winners of the data science stream, so Couched in Uncertainty, Hang and Low, and Avant Data Solutions. So now is the point we've all been waiting for. So this is the announcement of the winners for the Explorer Challenge competition. Well, not quite. So first, I'll start by announcing the winners of the secondary competitions. So first of all, the Genius Prize. The Genius Prize is the prize for the most creative, innovative, and unique approach, resulting in an out-of-the-box solution. This team combined cutting-edge machine learning, data science, to the exploration problems in ways that a lot of the judges haven't seen before. This prize goes to Team Orfox. Audience. That's a lie. Thank you. So, Insights, the most effective way of extracting useful, meaningful data from unstructured data sets, such as text, images, and photography. This goes to a team who took a unique approach to processing core photography and providing mineral predictions across the whole core photography library from Cromwell Hill. So congratulations to Avant-Garde Solutions. Okay, Data Hound Prize. This is for the most effective overall use of data sets, provided both publicly and privately in generating robust targets. It's fair to say that this team went above and beyond and absolutely extended everyone in Oz Minerals, because not only did they use the extensively provided Oz Minerals dataset, plus the South Australian dataset, they actually decided to fly their own airborne survey. So congratulations to Team Farlap. The last secondary prize is the Diffusion prize. And this is for the most novel ways of combining data sets to create insights and generating targets. This team did an incredible amount of work pre-processing and combining lots of different data sets at local and regional scale, and we were really impressed with the predictions that they generated from this work. So, congratulations to SRK Consulting. Getting closer, nearly at the pointy end. So first, I'll be announcing the student prize. And this is for a university team with greater than 50% students at PhD level or below. So, this team produced an extremely impressive body of work with a robust geological approach, applying relevant structural, geological, and geochemical constraints. And the judges felt that the team displayed excellent geological understanding of the problem and ensured that relevant data layers were used in generating the targets. So, congratulations to the coach team from the University of Tasmania.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, thank you. So we're truly honored. What a fantastic experience that was. Thank you to Oz Minerals. Thank you to Unearthed for generating this opportunity, and we put a lot of hard work into it, and I think we developed some robust drill targets that Oz Minerals should test.
All right. So now we finally got there. At this point, I feel that I need fireworks or a drum roll. Apparently, I can't have fireworks because of fire regulations. I'm not allowed drums either. Sharon wouldn't pay for it. So, quick look behind me. Yes, we do have an audience. There'll be some live here. We'll jump up and down, clap and cheer. So, third prize for a prize of $100,000. This team took a largely data-driven approach, displayed excellent statistical understanding of exploration targeting and the issues that sparse and sometimes poor data quality creates. They took a workflow approach, developing a usable toolkit for our geologists that worked well with this challenge, but would work well with other exploration targeting projects as well. The judges thought the team's use of machine learning was appropriate to the problem and well explained, and the team did really well in the data science stream of the Explorer Challenge. And it was clear that the model that they developed and the learnings were appropriately carried forward to the mainstream challenge. So congratulations to Team Sciencey.
Yep, thanks for that. We had a lot of fun doing that. Yeah, we got some pretty good targets, I think, and we'll look forward to seeing how the main drilling goes, or the drilling of new locations. So we'll follow the project with some interest. Yeah.
And what's next? Are you guys going to keep focusing on exploration?
Yeah, I think there's certainly, we've opened our eyes to quite a lot of possibilities in space. I think there's it may even change my career. So.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
Well done, guys.
Thanks.
Okay, second place with a prize of $200,000 This team really demonstrated an excellent combination of geoscience and data science, which were both sophisticated and represented the cutting-edge approaches in both fields. The way that the team integrated multiple layers of data, including reprocessing a lot of our geophysical information, was really impressive. They used a mineral systems approach combined with data science to provide us with a great exploration strategy and targeting approach. So congratulations to DeepSide X.
Well, when we started putting up a team only 3 or 4 months ago, that most of the AI experts here had no expertise, no knowledge about mining. And do we know we had a chance to win anything? No, we didn't. But we just feel this is the right opportunity for us to do something together, and we will grow whatever that we build in this journey. So we're going to build a new entity in this university, and also we will start commercialization process from that point on. So to winning a prize in this competition is just encouragement for us all. Thank you very much.
Right, here we go. Really feel I should have my best Eurovision Song Contest voice on here. In first place, for a grand prize of $500,000. Well, it was really good for the judges, and when it came to that, standing with the top 3 teams, it was pretty hard. So this team used a largely data-driven approach and really focused on interpretability. I can't really even interpret, which set them apart. They spent a huge amount of time compiling data sets from the states all around Australia, as well as national data sets to feed into their model. They demonstrated a really good understanding of the exploration problem and looking to predict anomalism rather than specific target grades. Overall, the approach provided an explainable and valid machine learning workflow that really resonated with both geologists and the data scientists, as well as an excellent way to tackle the problem of exploration targeting in a highly quantitative way. So, congratulations goes to Team Guru.
Hello. Hey. Thanks to everyone for hosting this. We had no clue how we won. Well, can't believe it. It was pretty, it was a massive journey. We spent months cleaning heaps of data. We were crazy enough to get every single historical assay result in Australia for the past 40, 50 years and try and clean it. And it's been referenced so far how messy it is. And I think maybe what put us over the line was really understanding the limitations of data science. So, and knowing we've been lucky, even though we aren't geologists, we have actually worked on 2 big discoveries, the Pilgangoora lithium discovery and Tropicana gold. So we kind of knew the full process of exploration and the difficulty of it, but we weren't too biased towards existing geology. And yeah, really understanding how ridiculously hard exploration is. So knowing that data science isn't going to come in like a data science technique. It's not going to come in and start predicting the depth, the size, the grade. What matters is to try and simplify the problem as much as possible. So to just try and augment the existing process. So we just wanted to predict areas that a geologist would want to test further rather than trying to test deposits. So we took a very realistic approach and tried to focus on how it could actually add value to the exploration process rather than replace it.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're over the moon. Can't believe it. Thanks.
All right, well, congratulations so much to all the teams. Congratulations, guys. Great to see all those reactions live. We're super stoked. So I guess that pretty much kind of concludes the announcements. All the winning teams, if you could stick on the line after we close, that would be great. because we do have a few more media questions for you. But to close out, before I'm going to pass back over to Andrew, but before I do, I just want to say a huge thanks from Unearthed for everyone who participated. It really was a monumental effort. I know how much work has gone into nearly all of the submissions. It's just absolutely phenomenal, and I know that this is making a huge step forward for Oz and exploration in general. So it's been absolutely fantastic to be a part of it. Congratulations to everybody. And I'll pass back over to Andrew Cole to close out the session.
And now we come to the close of the live stream of the results. I'd like to thank everybody again, the participants, the judges, partner organisations, for being supportive of the Explorer Challenge. It enables us to do something very different, not just for the sake of being different, but so we can keep pushing our knowledge and ways of working to greater heights and keep on the upwards. Congratulations again to all of our winners and our teams. We look forward to working directly with the top teams and cannot wait to see the results of the Explorer Challenge drilling program due to be completed by the end of this year. And to all teams, whether you won a prize or not, don't forget that we will be in touch, as we'd like to get a better understanding of the different aspects of your submissions and continue to learn from you and get better at what we do. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks again, everybody. It's been a fantastic journey. Looking forward to seeing the results of the drilling. So I'm going to leave it there, and thanks again. See everyone later.